Hello legends. So in this video, I'm going to be giving you the protocol that I've been using to code for the last 4 months. So I taught myself how to code across like 1.5 to 2 years. And in that time, I've tried a bunch of different tools, a bunch of different AI models, and I've come out to this specific process that I use to code up all the stuff that I do for just like personal things that I want to code or agency things that I want to code for clients. The process is fantastic, and even amidst tools like Replit Agent, Bolt.new, and all that kind of like AI autonomous coding agent stuff, I have no compulsion to try and use those tools. This is fantastic for me. So, who should watch this video? If you're interested in learning how to code, if you used to code back in the day and you've kind of forgotten, if you are if you work in a business where you outsource coding projects to developers, that's also perfect. That's fertile ground for you to take some of those things you're outsourcing, still outsource them, but use them as like real life use cases where you can practice coding. That's fantastic. Or if you're a no-code developer looking to improve their automation skills, basically in learning how to code, I was able to either augment my no-code builds for clients for things that I couldn't really achieve in make.com. I might like build a separate script for that, or just in general, by knowing how to code, I kind of knew the background mechanisms for how to process logic, and therefore I was able to make much more successful make.com scenarios. Anyway, it probably would make more sense if when you learn how to code. But who should not watch this video? So people looking for a band-aid solution. If you're trying to learn how to code, but you don't want to put in the hard work, if you just want to find the next gimmicky tool, stuff like that, don't watch this video. What I'm going to show you is nothing brand new. I don't think I didn't invent this protocol. It's just a process that I use. It is pretty boring. It is pretty hands-on, like we're using AI to code, but it's still pretty involved. And what it has done for me, aside from the success that I'm going to show you in the next slide, is it's made me a better coder. It's upskilled me. And I've spent the last, let's say, even 1 year where I've been really able to learn how to code and retain some of this information. It's made me so much better than if I just gave that coding, like if I just was using autonomous tools to code for me. Like I would have learned nothing. I wouldn't be any better than I was a year ago. And now I'm much better. I'm much more confident. I'm able to visualize things in my head before I even put pen to paper. So there's a lot of upsides to actually learning this more manual approach of how to code. But again, probably isn't the absolute best version out there. It's just a process that I follow that's working for me extremely well. And if you do want to learn how to code, it's comprehensive. I tell you how to code, which tools I'm using, how to deploy your code online if you do want to, basically have your, build a website and have it available online, build some script and have it available online. So all that stuff is covered in this video. Now, why you should watch this video, why you should listen to me, why you should even try this protocol. So as you can see, I've got some images here, but about 4 months ago, I started using Cursor as my main coding tool. Before that, I was using Visual Studio Code, and Cursor is like Visual Studio Code. It's another coding tool where you can write and execute code locally on your computer. But Cursor has a much more native integration with AI. So I started using this like 4 months ago, and from that time, I have been able to create a bunch of videos, a bunch of custom coded AI videos for AI callers, testing out different APIs, building chat apps, all sorts of things. And in the last 4 months, these videos, all created using this protocol, have generated 60,000 views, just over 60,000 views in 4 months from my YouTube channel. This time last year, my channel, and even up to like middle of last year, my channel was under 100 subs. And then when I started posting custom coded AI videos, my channel is now at like just under 5,000. So it's grown a lot. I've had lots of interest, obviously heaps of views, heaps of YouTube growth. My GitHub that I built out as well, which is like, I suppose, LinkedIn for coders, where you post your projects and people start following you. I've had multiple hundreds of downloads and people liking my stuff. On Gumroad, which is the platform where usually I'll take the resources from these videos and I'll make them available for free here, I've had over 1,100 downloads. Outside of this, I have also generated heaps of interest for people emailing me about building custom coded solutions, web apps, chat with PDF apps, AI callers, all sorts of that. And while I tend to turn people down because it's not part of my ultimate vision and what I'm focusing on in my actual AI agency, I have still generated maybe like 15 to 20K in the last 6 months of just custom AI coded solutions. So yeah, there's a lot you can do and a lot that you can achieve using this simple protocol. It's not revolutionary, it's not groundbreaking, it's nothing too crazy. If anything, I'd say it's boring, because it's still pretty manual, but it really upskills you. It really upskills you. So you can see I've had a lot of success: GitHub, YouTube, channel growth, heaps of contacts, Gumroad, which I also make money from this. When people want to like pay, they can get it for free or they can pay. So lots of opportunity using this protocol, lots of success that I had in the last 4 months. This is all like 4 months worth of stuff. So yeah, you can literally, like, you don't need anything super special to start coding. You can just use this basic protocol. So by the end of this video, you'll understand my process for coding up websites, web apps, and automation scripts, the tool stack that I use, as well as like key terminology, links to all resources, how to get set up from the start. There's no downtime or learning required to get started. You essentially learn on the job. And finally, we have a very basic example of how to build and deploy a basic web page. So the main thing I want to show you in this video is basically show you the tool stack that I use, which coding language I predominantly use, and then how the workflow is. Because like your actual skill set will be developed in you running different projects and you actually using the workflow to build a website, to automate a script, to build a web app. Like all that key learning is going to be localized to you. And yeah, I just want to give you a structured way to actually learn, and a structured way to actually code something start to finish. So our tools that we're using. So I use Cursor AI, and Cursor AI you can download from here. By the way, all the links that I'm going to be showing you are going to be in the description of this video. So you can just pop that open and click away and download and do everything else. So Cursor AI is the coding tool that we use. It integrates AI into the workflow, so we're going to be using AI to generate the code for us. And you can download this for PC or for Mac. I also have this video, which is a complete beginner's video on how to use Cursor AI. It's 10 minutes long. It's actually incredibly slow. Looking back at it now, so it's super beginner level. If you've never used it, it'll be good for you, but if you have used it with different tools, maybe you don't want to watch it, but I'll link that anyway. Next we use Anthropic API. So Cursor you can pay for. I think it's like $20 a month, and they give you like usage of AI. It is limited, but I think it's like it'll be perfect for your needs. But I mean, I don't pay for it. I use my Anthropic API key. So Anthropic is just Claude 3.5. If you don't have an account already, like if you have a Claude, like the ChatGPT version of Claude, if you have that Claude account set up, you actually need to have a separate account for Anthropic. So just go console.anthropic.com, and you go across to your settings, you create an API key, and then you just add $5-10, and you can start coding straight away. But if it's your first time downloading Cursor, I think they give you like a 2-week period for free where you can use the AI within their system already, totally free. So you can just do that. But yeah, me, like what I do, free version of Cursor, I don't pay for it, and then I use my Anthropic API key. Then I have a prompt. So in Cursor, you can actually input a prompt, like a system prompt that the AI follows. And there's a video here where I go through the prompt and I show you how to add the prompt into Cursor. Again, I did this 4 months ago, right when I first started using Cursor, and it's perfect. It's a beginner's prompt that you can kind of see it here, but it's a beginner's prompt that basically embodies the role of a JavaScript programmer. And the main thing that it does is it really it gives you the code and it breaks the code down. It explains the code right afterwards, basically explaining like what we're doing in the code, if there's different libraries or packages that you need to install in order to run the code as well. It'll tell you what they are and what commands to run. So it's a very DIY way of coding for beginners. And that prompt, you just watch this video. I'm going to link it in the description. And that's absolutely fantastic. I haven't changed it in 4 months. Everyone that I showed this protocol to, like I showed heaps of people privately, like not just on YouTube, heaps of people privately this protocol, and I give them the exact same prompt. So that's the prompt. Languages. So I use JavaScript for everything. I also use HTML and CSS when I'm coding up like websites or web apps, but predominantly JavaScript for automating things like writing automation scripts. You can also use Python, and it's more like Python, the language is more efficient than JavaScript for some use cases like processing data or working with files. It is more efficient, but I don't know, I kind of just decided to use JavaScript and only focus on that just because I thought it would be simpler. And I haven't yet run into any problem that I couldn't fix or anything that I couldn't code that required me to use Python instead of JavaScript. For sure, I could get more efficiency using Python in some areas, but yeah, I don't know. I just kind of use this all the time. I just stick to this. So I've never had any problems or any hurdles. Maybe I'm not doing anything complex enough to even need Python just yet, but yeah, absolutely no problems. And then I use Replit to deploy code on a server. And this is Replit. So Replit also has that like autonomous AI coding tool where you just prompt it and it can build an app for you, which is pretty cool because it'll write the code and then it'll build the files and it'll kind of like package everything up nicely. Just a quick word on this. I don't like using this because I kind of like coding from scratch and having full control over the code that I'm writing. Also, if you're a brand new beginner, you will prompt something here, and if it's easy, like a to-do list or a weather app or whatever they have here, it'll like code it up and it'll work and it'll be cool. But really, the actual value comes from coding things in your like for real life use cases. So if you need to automate something, typically if you need to automate something, you will have more complex logic, like you need to process an Excel sheet, or you will have to make a complicated API call to a software that you use whose documentation isn't really regularly updated or like publicly available or something. So there are some fringe use cases where yeah, as a beginner, I just wouldn't start with this. But if you follow this process that I'm going to show you, like this protocol, then you'll be able to use these autonomous tools, probably work even faster. But I don't even use them. I don't use Replit Agent. I don't use Bolt.new. I don't use any of those tools because what I'm doing now is fast, is efficient. I know how to do it, and it's upskilling me. And I have no like, just keep the eyes on the prize and keep focusing on execution. There's no point me jumping around to 10 different tools every couple of months. But you can do it if you want. Now, Replit is a fantastic tool for deploying your code online. If you build a website and you want to make it publicly accessible, if you build an automation script that you want to run at regular intervals to be accessible all the time by different tools that you use, deploy it on Replit. It's extremely easy to deploy. So I'm going to get into Replit a little bit more later on, but I use this for all of my projects. Everything that I build for clients, everything that I built for a YouTube channel, everything that I've done, I just use Replit. I don't use Google Cloud. I don't use Amazon Web Services. None of that. It is just probably, it's too complicated for me to even want to learn right now. So Replit is perfect for that. And yeah, that's the entire stack. So Cursor, Anthropic API, there's a prompt. I predominantly use JavaScript, and I use Replit to deploy. Now, a little bit of insight. I used to use Replit, like before I came across Cursor, I used to use Replit because they also have like inbuilt AI where you can prompt the AI and it writes the code for you, much in the same way as what I'm going to show you now with Cursor, which was good. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of found that Cursor and like the combination of Cursor and the Anthropic API key was just much more efficient at writing code and much more accurate. Maybe it's changed with Replit now, I'm not sure, but I kind of like, if it's working for me, I'm just going to stick with it. So yeah, that's Replit it's actually pretty dynamic as well. You can even use AI to code for you in much in the same way that I'm going to be showing you today. Okay, so just quickly, we spoke about how to use Cursor AI for complete beginners. Watch this video to actually understand how to use Cursor for the first time. We spoke about the system prompt, how to install the prompt in your Cursor so that when you're coding and you're getting, the scripts are getting written for you, you're getting instructions on exactly what's going on in the code, so you can kind of keep upskilling yourself and getting better at coding, best practices, all this kind of stuff. But also, you also learn about which libraries you need to install in order for the code to run. So it's so good. And over here, I have another video where I give you, I think it's 4 examples using this specific protocol. So we're using Cursor. We're using I don't think I'm using the Anthropic API key here. I'm probably using the built-in AI when I was first trialing Cursor on their free account. But you'll basically see the coolest thing is an example of how to write code that plugs into an Excel sheet, and then and then it infuses AI into the process to basically analyze the data in the Excel sheet. I think another code there, like it's like four examples, and they kind of build off each other. One of the examples also shows how to generate an Excel sheet, like how to build an Excel sheet using code. So it's this if you are working in a business where you want to process Excel sheets or Word docs, if you want to plug in AI into the process to analyze the data that you have in those documents as well. This is an excellent video like that you should watch. It's 20 minutes long. You can 1.5 speed it, but you will learn, like it's very, very good. It's very good. And it's like local use cases. People, like everyone has to process Excel. Everyone's got to process a Word document. So this is a really good starting point if you want to learn how to code as well. All right. So before we get into the requirements, I just want to show you this this high-level image. So we're going to be using Cursor, which is this kind of box over here, and it lets us write code, lets us generate code using AI, and it basically holds all the files for the code, and we can do all of our testing, all of our coding within Cursor. So this runs, this basically runs our code on our local computer, which is great for initially building things out. And this is where you plug in the API key, and I just choose the model Claude 3.5 Sonnet, and that's why I have what I have over here running all of my AI generated code. And then on the left hand side we have Replit, where once we're ready to deploy this, and let's say this is a website, we can deploy it on Replit and it can be publicly accessible. But there is a lot of time that I just spend within this environment here. So again, the API key is always plugged in and I'm always using Claude. But if I ever want to do like there's some reports that I generate, or there's some processes that I automate directly from my Cursor, from my Cursor environment without deploying the code on Replit, I just have it on my computer, and like every Monday there's a couple of scripts that I execute and it builds reports for me directly into my computer, or it does some other stuff like automates some tasks. And it's as easy as kind of just running the script in the computer, and then I have like 3 or 4 reports run on Monday, and I don't have to worry about spending, I don't know, half an hour to an hour going to different tools, generating the report, cleaning up all that data. I just run it from my Cursor. So you don't always have to build something in Cursor and then go on to Replit to deploy it. This is really good for deploying to make it live, but there's probably a lot of use cases where you would just have like heaps of scripts and heaps of files just in Cursor on your computer. So yeah, like the more you start coding and the more you kind of look to your local environment, like, oh, here's a report I run, here's an Excel file I can kind of process and do, you'll find that you spend a lot of time just in here, and it's really cool. But in saying that, with those reports that I automate here, I could definitely put them into Replit and make them run, weekly on a Monday if I wanted to. So you can bridge the gap between, making it fully automatic, or just you have to press a button or you have to run a command each Monday. So that's really cool there. And typically, if I'm building a project for a client or I need to do some kind of automation, then I will start it in Cursor. I'll kind of do some testing to see if it's possible. Like if I'm using make.com and I have a new scenario and I want to test that scenario, I'll just write a basic API call in Cursor that targets that make.com webhook to execute that scenario, instead of like going into my CRM and creating a new ticket or something to trigger that workflow to start. So there's a lot of use cases for Cursor, extremely handy. But yeah, this is the entire workflow. We have Claude plugged into Cursor, so we have AI generated code, we have Cursor itself to write and test code and execute code, and then once we want to make it live, we just deploy it onto Replit. So this is the entire workflow. Nothing special, nothing too crazy. All right, going back into here, so the next is requirements. We have to download Node.js. So since we're coding in JavaScript, we have to go across to this website, click download, and this is what's going to let us run that JavaScript on our computer in Cursor. So Node it's like the kitchen, and the JavaScript is a recipe. So in order for you to cook the recipe, you have to be in the Node kitchen. An interesting thing is this browser. So I'm on a browser right now on the internet. Pretty much every browser like Chrome, Safari, Firefox, they have Node built in, because a lot of websites use JavaScript as the backend to run different actions. Like if you click a button and then you want to upload something, or this will like click and it will download, or you might like click into a different tab. All that functionality is run by JavaScript, and the browser natively has Node, the kitchen for JavaScript, built in, so it can execute JavaScript. But since we're coding in Cursor and it's on our local computer, we have to download Node onto our computer, so then we can actually run JavaScript as well. So that's what you need to do here. When you get into Replit, you don't have to download like Node into here. All that kind of stuff will be taken care of for you. So yeah, we have to download this so we can use Cursor on our computer and JavaScript on our computer. If it's your first time coding with Cursor or any coding tool in general, you'll most likely need to download a bunch of different libraries. So a library is and that's this over here, is a very kind of basic glossary. But a library is like a bolt-on feature or a package that extends the functionality of your code and lets you do more things. So it lets you interact with Word documents, it lets you make API calls. So when you're using my prompt, when you upload this into Cursor and you're writing code and something happens in the code that like there's a, you want to make an API call, or you want to, interact with an Excel file, the code, like the actual AI chat will also tell you, run this command to download this library. So when you're first starting out, you probably have a lot of commands like that to run, which is totally fine. But then the more you go, and like after you've made API calls, after you've interacted with Word documents and everything else, you won't have to keep downloading them each time. They're now installed on your computer. But yes, we have to download. We will have to download a bunch of libraries. But the next thing is, it's like this is a mindset thing. So you got to keep an open mind to things, and you have to persist. So there will be 100%, there will be times where you feel like what you're doing, what you're building, what you're coding, even though you're using AI, like you get stuck and you feel like what you're doing is completely wrong. And there is this like phenomenon that happens with AI, and it happens more than just for coding. But when you're coding something, or when you're speaking with ChatGPT, you probably noticed this. It will get into this, like if it doesn't know the answer and you keep kind of asking the same question, trying to determine the answer of something, it'll start like, it might pitch you 1, 2, or 3 answers, but then it just starts going in a loop. And when it gets into that loop, you have to break out of that loop by either starting a new chat or by giving it new information, giving it new context. But typically when it gets into that loop, at least for me, that's where I found that I was like, oh, I'm doing the wrong thing. Like it's in this loop, I'm doing the wrong thing, I'm asking the wrong thing, the code that we're generating is completely wrong. Like I'm just a beginner, how could I truly know? In those cases, you have to persist, because most likely, and this happens to me 9 out of 10 times, you are on the right track. You're just a degree away from actually getting there. And it's kind of like you're in a dark room and you have to find you just got into a dark room, you have to find the exit door, and you kind of don't know where you're going, but as soon as you open a door, it's flooded with light and everything works. I think that'll make more sense when you're actually coding, that feeling of being lost or confused or like not really confident that what you're doing is working. But just persevere, just keep going through it. If you need to start a new chat window, if you need to kind of like slow it down and go into the documentation again and kind of copy and paste the API call from the documentation, the sample API call, back into the chat and say, hey, let's slow down. Like, here's how it should look. What are we missing? You will typically find a solution. So this is a base feeling. I even feel this nowadays. I used to feel it a lot when I first started coding, but it still happens to me now, although it's a lot less. But don't worry about this. This is completely normal. This is completely normal. You're not alone. Everyone's going to feel this. There's like this meme culture in coding, which is like one incorrect character in 1,000 lines of code can break the entire code. Something like that. So it's like you're typically a degree away. One thing is off, and then it'll make everything work. So you got to persevere. Okay, terminology. So logs and debugging. You can kind of read this. A lot of this is self-explanatory, but when we write code, it will mess up and it will not work. There'll be times where this happens, and typically when you're first writing something, it will just not work. To help solve the problems, or to debug the code, so debugging the code is solving the problem that's going wrong in the code, we leave traces within the code, or logs. So a log is a trace in the code to identify where the issue may be. And And that could be, let's say the code has 5 steps in it and you're automating a task and it's got step 1, step 2, step 3. You'll typically leave a log in the code that says we're at step 1, we're at step 2, we're at step 3. So when you execute the code and the logs are printed to the screen during execution, if it stops at like step 2, that's where you know that like step 3 is faulty. So when you copy the logs, you give it to the AI to debug for you or to like kind of try and fix the, repair the code, fix the code. It knows exactly where the issue is. So that's why you do logs and debugging. JavaScript is the language that we're using. You probably already know this, but like there's a bunch of different languages. They have different use cases. HTML is typically used for building websites, like the stuff that you see and interact with. JavaScript is like processing logic, making API calls. Python also processes logic, makes API calls, but it's better at processing documents or data than JavaScript is, for example. Node is the engine for JavaScript to run, and like I basically explained before, browsers have Node built in, so you can actually interact with websites. But because we're using Cursor, it's independent of the browser. We're running JavaScript in that Cursor environment, so we need to download Node. And then library we had before, it's just additional things that extend the functionality of your code. So, okay, we spoke about all this stuff. Now, let's actually just take this puppy for a ride. So we're going to be building a very basic web page. Now, I mean, I could kind of sit here and keep making different examples of watch me code this, watch me code that, and you can do that. But the real learning happens when you just pick a project and you build it. So I'm just going to show you how to build and deploy this web page. I'm going to use Cursor, I'm going to code it up, and then I'm going to copy it across to Replit and then deploy it on Replit, just so you can see the start to finish process. But really what you should be doing is picking a project, like let's say build a basic web page, and just building it. And not building it for a purpose of like, I want to make it look cool or whatever. Just build it to close the loop. The first time you build something, make it as simple, as easy, as MVP as possible. Then copy and paste it to Replit and deploy it on Replit, and then delete it immediately if you want. Like, you don't have to worry about leaving it up or leaving it down, whatever, just delete it. And you kind of want to get more reps in, because after you do that process 10 times, you start to realize that like, okay, I need a HTML, a CSS, and a JavaScript file when I'm building a website. And that will just become second nature for you. So now these basics won't be adding to like stress or like making you think about like, what am I doing? You just close the loop 10 times. Don't worry about doing anything too fancy, and like just when you're starting, keep it simple, stupid, like just the KISS principle. So yeah, if I were you, just choose a very basic project, build a web page. Next is automate a task. So let's say you use Asana or ClickUp or anything like that at work. Figure out, like, go to the ClickUp API, figure out how to make an API call that creates a task, and do that from Cursor. You don't have to deploy that on Replit then. That's just one of those local things that you run, like I told you when I automate my reporting. And just make a task. It doesn't have to be the craziest task with 5 subtasks and tags and assigns. Just make a basic task, go into ClickUp, be happy that you did it, and then just delete it. And then make another task, and this time make the task, and then try and change the name of it, or try and assign it to someone. That's how you get better at this. And you'll begin to realize that this protocol, like, it's sufficient for all of your needs. And then you maybe want to like look at Replit Agent or Bolt.new if you're building lots of apps or for like different use cases. But I'm telling you now, I've used this for 4 months and I haven't had the urge to look at different tools, different whatever. It's working perfectly for me, and I don't think I'm going to be changing anytime soon. Maybe unless like Claude Sonnet 4 comes out or something like that, or the new ChatGPT model comes out and it's better. I might change the model around, but for now it's fantastic. Okay, so to build something out, I'm just going to be opening up my my Bart folder. You should watch these videos, and a lot more of this will make sense to you. But basically, in the settings tab, you'll be able to add your prompt. Again, it's in that video. And if you want to add your model, you can just choose. You basically over here you choose which models you want it to be active for your account. You can put in some of your API keys here. But I typically, like, this is my Anthropic API key, and I'm typically using Claude 3.5. So on the right hand side here in my chat, I'm using 3.5. I can drop this down and choose different models, but this is my favorite model. So I'm going to close this, and I'm just going to prompt up that I want to build a basic web page. And actually, while we're here, like, the cool thing would be to go across to Replit, right? And in Replit, to create a new REPL, you just go to Create REPL, and you have a bunch of templates that you can use to build different things, build and deploy different things. So you have a Python app if you want to build an app in Python, a JavaScript app if you want to build an app in JavaScript. You have a very basic template for HTML, CSS, and JavaScript if you want to build a website. So for our use case, let's say we want to build a website. And by the way, for me, like my personal experience, 99% of the stuff I build is on Node.js. Web apps on Node.js, automation scripts, all on this. And yeah, when I click this, you can choose your name, choose your settings. I typically leave it private, and I click Create REPL. And this is that Replit agent where you can use this to like create an app for you. But I'm going to close this off because we're doing all of our coding within Cursor. But you can see as soon as it, like when I chose that specific template, it already pre-configured an index file, a script file, and a style.css. So if I was to go to here and hit run, this panel is going to show you exactly the output of these files. This is how the web page would look right now. That's really cool. And I'm going to show you the node example in a second. Actually, after this entire example, I'll show you the node one. But when you build a node app, it's got like different files in it. So you can see the structure of how a web app is meant to be deployed. And typically that node app, like the files that it has, that same structure is used for when you're building an app for a Zendesk or for HubSpot or for any other like CRM that you use and you want to build a custom third-party app and upload it so you can use it. It's all similar structure. So the more you kind of code, the more you experiment, the more you realize that it's kind of like it's easier than what it seems. So let's say right now I just have, basically I want to build a basic website. So I'm going to go, let's write, build me a basic one-page website using HTML, CSS, JavaScript. I don't have to be this clear about it, but I like to be overly clear and put overly like a lot of context. As a personal brand page for me. You can put images into here as well. So I will just go across to how to code with Cursor. Let me go across to my actual brand page, view your channel. And I'm just going to paste in this. So that's cool as well. And I'm going to get this and paste it into here. Use the YouTube channel as inspiration. Okay, we're going to generate some code. Okay, I'm not sure what happened, why it stopped. Can you please resend all of that? Okay, it seems like there was like some error that stopped the code from generating. There we go, but everything else is coming. So we have our HTML file, we have our style.css, and then we have our okay, this is pretty in-depth. Well, our script.js. Okay, so we should actually be able to plug in our URLs for the videos. But I'm going to keep things very basic for now, so I'm just going to go hit copy here. I'm going to create a new file called index.html. So that's the file, and there's even file names that you can use. Now you typically want to use the same file names as what is suggested in the AI because it'll reference those file names in the code that it writes, and if it's not the exact same, like over here it's referencing the script file. If you called it like tasks.js, it wouldn't be able to pick it up, so it has to use the same naming conventions. But typically everything is like index.html is a standard name for a HTML file when you're first starting. If you have other HTML files, you might be more specific then. Styles.css is also very standard. .css, and these endpoints that we're putting, like not endpoints, sorry, like .css is the extension of the file, and it lets basically this is like the CSS, the styling file. The .html extension, as you would assume, is the HTML file, Then the .js is the JavaScript file. If you do Python, it's .py. But here's our styling for the app. And then we have script.js. And I'm going to go script.js and put it into here. Now I actually have this go live button that I can run on the server. Let me just see if I can find this extension, go live. Where is it? Okay, I'm going to go extensions, and I'm going to go live. Okay, it's actually called live server. So we're going to search it up, and we have this one here. That's what I got, ritwick DEY. So you click this and you click install, and that gives you the ability to basically project the code that we've written for the HTML page onto a tab on our actual web, onto the tab with Chrome over here. What am I using? I think I'm using Chrome or something. Sorry, I explained that really poorly, but you will see what we can do. So I'm just going to close this. So after you install it, you'll have this little button down here called Go Live. Once you click Go Live, let me just bring this into view. It will generate this. So this is running locally. It's basically projected from Cursor, and this is showing you what that HTML page looks like right now. So as you see, it's pretty cool. I'm not going to waste your time by trying to develop it like even further to put different writing or different colors or different, whatever else. But you can see it's from a simple prompt. We have a very cool image. If I was to fill out the YouTube video stuff, it probably would even show like thumbnails of the videos as well. So from here to deploy this, let me even just see if this works as well. Yeah, you can see it's even working. It just clicks to the different sections. But let's open up Cursor. So this is the code that we've written. So now you can take this. That's off screen right now, but over here we have the three files: index, script, and style. Now just quickly, this code, when it spat out, it told me to use styles.css. So sometimes it's style, sometimes it's styles. So the first thing I'm going to do is just change this to styles. So I'm going to put an S at the very end, so it's the exact same. And then I'm just going to be copying all these files. So I'm going to go Control A. So obviously here I'm just doing it fast tracking, but you would just continue building out your app over here, and then you can just refresh this page and you would see the updates live and live and live until you're happy with it. So I'm going to copy this entire code. Assuming we are happy, go into the index.html and overlay it and paste it here. And if I was to just click run again, well, there's no styling, so it might not work. Let me just refresh this entire page. Something may have bugged on my computer. Okay, so there you go. So this is without styling, we can immediately see this is the same thing as what we see over here. Obviously, there's no style, there's no CSS, but this is the exact same concept. So this is not actually live deployed. It's just running locally in this environment to show us what the current website looks like or web app looks like. So I'm going to keep copying the rest of this stuff across. I'm going to go to script, copy it, go to script here, and paste it in, and then go to styles, copy it all, go to styles here, and paste it in. Now if I refresh this, we'll see the exact same thing as we saw over here. Once again, this is projected from Cursor, and now here we have it projected from our actual environment. So once again, I know I'm kind of just scooting through this really quickly, but this same process, if you wanted to deploy like a script on the server that you wanted to target, like let's say you wanted every time a ClickUp task is created, that you want some kind of automation to run it through your CRM to find the customer details and then extract the customer's phone number and then populate it back in ClickUp. You would do that kind of automation. You would create it on Cursor, you would make sure it works, you would plug it into Replit, and then when you deploy it live, you would just basically like integrate all three together. There's different mechanisms for that, like making webhooks, where ClickUp would then send a call out to a webhook, and a webhook is like let's say a phone number that the script would have, and it would be called, the script would run, and it would respond back to that phone call with the answer, and that would update that ClickUp task with the customer's details. If you want to see more complicated things like that, like building out scripts, I'm happy to do that. But you guys can get really far if you just kind of commit to it, keep an open mind, and just persist. So now that we have this and I'm fully happy with this, I'm going to click deploy. And typically, whichever option you choose here, so I've chose HTML, it'll tell you the recommended version of deployment, and you can just choose that. So I'm going to keep everything the same. Over here, this is just a name that it's going to be used for the URL, so you can change this to whatever name you want, but it's still going to have .replit.app at the end. What you might want to do is after you deploy this, you can actually change the URL by like changing the DNS records. If you have if you have your own website, you can overlay your own custom domain so that this URL points to a different URL that uses your domain, and it makes it a little bit more professional. But if you just click deploy, it will take a couple of minutes to build this, and then this website will be publicly accessible by absolutely anyone. So you can give it to your friends, you can give it to your family. If you had that like situation where ClickUp will send a request to your server, you would use this URL as part of the request URL in ClickUp so that it would actually reach this specific deployment. But then from here, if I click this, now this is a public URL. You can share this with anyone, and they have access to your app. And then from here, if you ever make any changes, you add some more CSS, you make another HTML page, whatever changes you make here, you just go back to redeploy, and it pushes those changes live. So until you press redeploy, it will not make it live. And if I was you guys, just follow the exact same process now after this video. Make a very basic like web page like this. Doesn't have to look good. Go to Replit, deploy it, make it live, share it with your friend, and just say, look what I made in 5 minutes. That's the coolest thing, and it's positive reinforcement. And one final thing at the end of this video, the other deployment that I use is Node.js. So if I just click create REPL, you will see here that we have a bunch of pre-built, it's a template with files. So we have like configuration files, .git ignore, all these different files that we didn't have before, and this is specific to launching an app. So yeah, basically you could still run a HTML page like your website using this deployment. I typically do that for web apps, but I also have like just large files that have like JavaScript processing, like different API calls, different processes that I need to automate, might also live in the same kind of ecosystem, so the same app that I have different HTML pages for. So these are all just like configuration files and exactly how you like the template structure of building an app when you're using JavaScript. So if you're ever building a third-party app for Zendesk, for Microsoft Teams, you will find that you use largely the same structure. Package.json, it's always called this, and it always has the same contents. The contents do vary between the app that you're building, but that's how it is. Like that, this is how these things operate. So the more you build, the more you learn, the more comfortable you get, and then you get that confidence in like, oh yeah, I can build this, or I know what's needed to build this client project. But yeah, as the first challenge for you, I would definitely go and create a basic HTML page. The second challenge would be, maybe not straight away, but if you have the time for it, go to Microsoft Teams if you have it. Go to Zendesk or your CRM. Just read a documentation on how to deploy a web app and just have a go and build a web app. Or you can just like screenshot this actual setup. Predominantly what you need is index, package, like these files, but you can go to Cursor and you can say, hey, I want to build a web app now, and it'll tell you what code you have to execute to build out the same template files over here. I'll actually just give you an example of that now. So I'm gonna create a new chat, and I'm gonna say I want to build a Node app. Can you help me start building it? Let's see, I think the instructions here should give us the initial commands to run. Yeah, okay, so there you are. We're creating a folder for the new app that we're building, which is really, really good because we don't want to build an app directly in this folder because we've already got some context here. So if we just execute these commands, we should be able to build a new folder. Let me just see how it runs. Yep, we've got a new folder for my Node app. Then I'm going to cd into here. Cd into there means that I'm going to change the folder or the directory that I'm working within to this new app. Okay, so now I'm in Node app. You see over here, it was in the Bart folder, and the Bart folder is this overarching folder. Now I'm in the My Node apps subfolder, and if I run this command, this is going to execute for me the same kind of template that we had before, which is the package file. And as you can see, this is technically all that we need to execute within Cursor, which is the package file. But Replit is obviously much more comprehensive with the files that it offers you because it's the full deployment version. And that's just the way that Replit runs in its own environment. But you can see from here, like with the different libraries that we would need to run, dependencies, libraries, packages, it's all the same thing, just terminology is different, or at least my terminology is different. And you can see this is already an example of how to structure your folders. So because it can't really create the folders for you, at least just yet, it'll just show you what kind of folders you need to add into your project. So if I was a bit more specific and I said I want to create an app that would do X, Y, and Z, it would also start writing those files for me and doing everything. But yeah, this is an example of how to get started. You can see it's very, very generic here, but if you use this prompt, this is how comprehensive the prompt is. It tells you all the code, all the different files, how to lay it up, which commands to execute first, and you see how easy it was. It's very like automated, but it's also very educational. The prompt is meant to tell you what's going on, why we're doing it, with the end goal of upskilling you and improving your coding skills. Because a lot of coding, like yes, it is creating code, it's debugging, but it's also understanding the file structure. So when I first started coding, it was so difficult for me to just like upload one of my apps to Zendesk because I didn't understand what files I needed and I didn't understand like the relationship between those files. So yeah, definitely challenge yourself, build a few apps, build a few of these things. If you want to see other content, please leave a comment in the description. Sorry, please leave a comment in this video. Otherwise, good luck with coding. All right, see ya.